Alright. Buko lived right here on the Thomaston farm. And more than anything, Buko wanted to be able to see. One day he's walking along and boom, he ran into a rock right here. And then a few minutes later, boom, he ran into a second rock. And he said, that is it, I'm going to go to the city and I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to find the eye doctor and I'm going to get some glasses. So Buko waited at the end of the Thomaston farm for the train to come. And then he took the train and he was all by himself until they picked up Mrs. Gaudette right there. And so Mrs. Gaudette and Buko took the train all this way towards the city. Meanwhile, Tiki lived in the mountains. And more than anything in the world, Tiki wanted to be a train conductor. So one day, instead of just wishing to be a train conductor, Tiki said, I'm going to go to the city and talk to the train president. So Tiki took off from the mountains, across the plains, and waited right up in a tree for the train to come. And once the train came, he hopped on board, and Mrs. Gaudette, Tiki, and Buko all went together to the city. Now when they got to the city, there were lots of big buildings. But there was only one building that Buko and Tiki both needed to go into, and that was this building here. Buko went up first. He went in this elevator door all the way up to the 9th floor, and he met with the eye doctor, and he goes, and the eye doctor says, come in, come in, come in. So Buko walks right in and says, Doctor, I need glasses. And the doctor said, well, take an eye test. And they gave him an eye test, and Buko did awful, and the doctor said, guess what? You need glasses. And Buko said, I know that. So, the doctor said, that'll be $100. And Buko said, I don't have $100. I don't even have enough money to get back home on the train. And the doctor said, sorry, we can't help you. So Buko went all the way down the elevator, out the elevator door, around the building, and sat over in a park right here and cried. Meanwhile, Tiki went up this elevator door, all the way to the 10th floor, and he met with the train president, and he knocks on the door, and the train president says, come in, come in, come in. And Tiki says, Mr. President, I want to be a train conductor. And the president started laughing and laughing, and he said, you're way too small to be a train conductor. And the train conductor, or the train president said, you'll have to find something else to do. And Tiki was not happy. So he went down the elevator, out the elevator door, and around the building and started heading for home, not even waiting for the train. So Tiki started heading back, 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 back. But it was a long trip and he got tired. So he saw a nice lake and he pulled right off next to the lake and took a nap. Meanwhile, Buko was right here still crying when Mrs. Gaudette saw him again. And Mrs. Gaudette said, why are you crying, Buko? And Buko went through the whole story about the glasses, not having enough money to get back home. And Mrs. Gaudette said, Buko, you silly, silly creature. Listen, I will draw you a map. You are really close to your home right now. We were just lazy taking the whole train trip there today. But if you just go this way, you will end up right back at your farm. And Buko said, that's great. And he got so excited. But the one thing he couldn't do was see. So he actually ended up going the wrong way. And he went around the building again and started going on the same path that Tiki was on. And he realized he was lost and he got sad and he was crying and crying and crying. He wasn't paying attention to where he was going. And then, hey! And he looked around and he looked down and he almost ran over Tiki. And Tiki was not happy. So Tiki's yelling at Buko. Buko's crying. And then they both sat down and talked. And they heard each other's problems and they thought they would work together. Tiki said, I have a great idea. Why don't we work together and I will go with you and tell you when to turn so you don't run into anything. And then that will be good for you and it's good for me because I will be able to be like a train conductor and tell you where to go, left, right, left, right. So they decided to do that. And they headed north towards the mountains. And it went really, really well. And so they decided that they were going to stay together forever to help each other out. So if you are ever in Africa and happen to see a bird on the horns of a rhinoceros, you have just seen Buko and Tiki.